I really appreciate you making time for this. Come full circle. I know you're probably exhausted by now.
Hey, no, I'm so happy. Thank you for having me on the show, and I appreciate your time, Glenn. Thank you.
No, look, the pleasure is mine. I've got to start off with the fact that we've got another Christmas horror movie to add to the calendar. As a horror fan, that means a lot to me. So that's the first question. What was the reason to set this at Christmas?
Well, what's funny is I'm glad you're seeing that because not everyone does. There were like we did some festivals and there were some exit interviews being done, and people really picked up on that fact. However, not everyone. Obviously, it's Christmas, but is this the next Die Hard? Christmas. Because there are a lot of winks to the '80s films and action heroes and all that stuff, which is why I say it. But I think what's fun about this movie is there's so many sort of hopefully unexpected twists and turns. And, it's a revenge thriller at the end of the day, which is the oldest story in the book, right? It's so primal. A saber-toothed tiger attacks a caveman's clan. They go hunt the saber-toothed tiger, right? It's like Shakespeare. It's like love. But I think it's told in a little bit different of a manner in this one with, the pastor, a man of the cloth, and I think throwing in that Christmas element was something that just heightened sort of the reality and the fall, and peeled, it added another layer of the onion to the story from where it goes from the first act to the third act.
Totally, and I do love right at the beginning, without giving anything away whatsoever. But when you say they're not zombies, like that is just the perfect kickoff right there. Like, and I just love the fact that that comes full circle, and it really made it. That's what made it so rewarding for me. That one little line.
Oh man, thanks so much. It's crazy because you'd be surprised. Making a movie is not easy, and you read a script and then to read the script and then actually try to get that movie across the finish line between filming it and then the edit and all the different voices and different egos and people and COVID and all these things. Like I come from the school of you got to collaborate with the writers. If they're alive, if they're there, if you have access to them, you have to lean into them. And me and Gear Brothers are close. So I was able to do that. And I'm an actor first and foremost. So, as an additional director and also a producer on this, that's the school that I come from. But a lot of these little nuggets and Easter eggs in that line were fought for pretty hard from the original script, actually. There tried to be a few changes from the beginning along the way. And we had to fight for that one, along with a lot of things. And that's what's been so cool about this, whether you like the movie or not. And it's not for everybody. As I'm starting to hear people talk about it, I hear these little things, and it's making me feel happy inside, because you're like, damn, I remember how hard we fought for that and this. And, you may not get that off the page. I happen to. There's a lot of things I don't get. But on this case, I was inspired by those because the writers and I collaboratively, artistically, and we're aligned, so it just aligned for this one,
So speaking of that, you mentioned being the producer and a co-director on this. How did this project all come together? Where was its origins, and how did you become involved with it?
Yeah, so early 2000s, mid 2000s, I had a little record deal. I had a rock band, and I was living in LA at the time. But I'm an East Coast guy, but I was out in LA, and my music manager used to be like, "Hey, listen, you got to go write with these brothers. These guys are amazing songwriters, talented. It's the Gear Brothers, the writers of the Retaliators." So I would go and I'd travel about an hour and a half, 2 hours south of LA to meet with these guys. And as I said, like we're so aligned, like our taste and everything. So anyway, I go back to the East Coast. Everyone's in their life. Some years had passed, and get this. This is crazy. I had to do a charity event, and I'm on the set of a movie, and I called Darren and I said, "Hey, Darren Gear." I said, "Hey, man, I'm doing this charity event. I want to perform that song, 'When Heaven and Hell Collide,' that you and I wrote, but it's not my band. I haven't played with these guys. I need to drop it a half step. What do you think?" And you think it's going to sound too muddy. I think it was in drop D already. So it was like, so he's like, "Yeah, we're talking blah, blah, blah. Well, hey, what have you been up to lately?" "My brother and I have been writing screenplays," he says. And I said, "Send them to me now." So he sent me a lot of screenplays, and I saw the Retaliators, and I was like, I got to make this movie. Now, get this. This is crazy. Alan Kovac, he's the CEO and founder of Better Noise Music. It's a huge record label, right? They represent over 40 bands. Back in the day, he had the Bee Gees, Meatloaf. He still has Blondie, Tommy Lee, Motley Crue, Five Finger Death Punch. So I know him. He attended the charity event that I was doing, that I dropped the song A Half Step When Heaven and Hell Collide that I wrote with Darren. After it, we go to the after party, the dinner thing, and he's saying to me, hey, it would be great to do something with you someday. I like you, blah, blah, blah. So I bring him the Retaliators. And I knew Alan before that, but at that charity event is when we started to get close. It took a few years, but so I bring him the Retaliators, and he's like, let's do this. And isn't this crazy? And when I read I knew it was the perfect script because I felt the music jump off the page. And it didn't say, hey, music here, there, but it's such a wink at the 80s, all those great movies, 80s and 90s, Lost Boys, Crow, Breakfast Club, Judgment Night, with these great soundtracks. So Alan said, let's do this. And he backed me the whole time. He never questioned it, gave me so much responsibility and so much, just put so much faith in me. He never stepped on set, but he put me in touch with every musician, all these incredible musicians who have cameos in the film, Five Finger Death Punch, Tommy Lee from Motley Crue, Spencer Charnas, Ice Nine Kills, Jacoby Shaddix, Papa Roach, Craig Mabbitt, Escape the Fate, Eva Marie from Eva Under Fire, and it goes on and on. The Who, oh my God, these guys are so good.
I shot them live about 2 weeks ago. They are phenomenal.
Dude, aren't they getting nominated for some they're in not best live performance too?
Oh, they are just because we shot like an acoustic set with them, and it was just phenomenal.
Dude, they came to set, the full band, when one of the leads was he's in the scene and he's in the coffin, right? And then Jacoby was filming from Papa Roach. So that weekend we got to shoot a music video where Jacoby's featured on their song, Wolf Totem, it's called. So I got to play that song over and over again with so cool, man. It's so cool. So yeah, we the one of the goals too that Alan and I set out to do was make this a movie first, because look, you have this gold lining of these incredible musicians and this incredible soundtrack. But for me, I wanted a movie. I thought this film, I love the writing, and I thought it sat on the highbrow side of horror, and it was story driven, but yet, there's these great opportunities, but I really wanted to do it in a non-gratuitous manner and in a way in which, if you didn't know it was, if you weren't a fan of Papa Roach, you'd just think Jacoby Shaddix was an actor. And I feel like, who knows where it goes, this movie's not for everyone, but at the end of the day, we got into some great genre festivals and listening to people starting to talk about it. It's really nice to hear that they respect it as a film, because I never wanted to just leech off the musicians and to be quite honest with you, like if I went to my acting agent and was like, and by the way, who cares? Because you want to make a piece of art anyway. You can't work on all this stuff. But I will say, if you went and said, hey, I'm in this movie with 8 musicians and this great soundtrack, it might not be taken seriously, and again, that never stopped me. And a lot of things maybe should have stopped me in terms of, holy shit, I'm in a movie. I haven't even done this before. I've been on a lot of stuff. I've been an actor 20 years, and I was on this television show for a long time. I did 100 episodes of it. But point is, I just didn't look back because I was so passionate about the script and then all these other elements. But again, giving the respect to these musicians and not making them be proud of the film at the end of the day, and having it be more of a symbiotic thing where they're in a real movie and a new fan base maybe could be open to them for people who just like the genre, but yet they're bringing all this added value, and that was something that I really wanted to set out for. We'll see where it goes from here, but those were all my goals, a lot of them.
I think it's probably fortuitous too, because I think you've picked the right time for this movie to drop, because you've had that Foo Fighters horror film come out, and this is sort of very much similar kind of genre. It's sort of it's got a lot of music. It takes the piss out of a lot of the genre. What I wanted to talk to you about, you mentioned the fact that you wanted to put story first, and I totally get that, because none of these guest cameos, whatever you want to call them, none of them seemed tokenistic. That seemed like they were just naturally in the film. But they say never work with children, never work with animals. What's it like to work with rock stars? Are they hard to wrangle on the set? Like, do they take it as seriously as they should?
Let me tell you, man, if you can get them there, you're golden. They are
Yeah.
great. Uh, if you can get them there were a couple times. No, they were all but there were a couple times where I was expecting somebody, and then we had to pivot on the day.
Yeah.
Um, however, they're so good, man. And you know what? They're natural storytellers, right? They're all
Yep.
pros. They came to play. You know, acting's like jumping off that cliff, not being afraid. Now, I talked to them all about their characters before they got to set. They listened. They were open. You know, it's crazy because I'm going to see them. I knew who they were, but now I'm going to some of their shows and seeing what they do on stage and being like, holy shit, like that's amazing that I hung out with that dude and talked to him about his role and we've collaborated together, you know, because they're so powerful on stage and they're all been doing this for years. It's a long journey and they're masters of their craft. So it was really nice for them to come in and be so open to learning and listen and direct them and talk to them about their part. And just sort of, they have open arms, you know, like there's natural storytellers through music, through their instruments, through lyrics, if it was the lead singer. But I think when you come in and you act, you have to like maybe make it a little smaller than you do on stage and have it inside and bring it behind your, you know, your eyes. And it's always about the pinch, never the ouch. What I thought was really cool was no one was like faking. You know, you could come out and be big, but then you're not genuine. And what I loved is no one wanted to be false or fake. Like they asked the right questions. They did the right emotional preparation, whatever it was. Like if you're going to go play a scene and you're going to be in this mood, you could use that your dog died 3 years ago or whatever the hell it is to get you there. And then you go and play the scene with your objective and point of view. But whatever they were using, I saw them all in the corner at different times, every different musician who was on it at a different time doing this. And I'm like, all right, man, you know, this is pretty cool. They instinctually knew what they were doing. Now I know they do a lot of music videos and different things, but I don't think many of them have acted in a feature film, or at least to this capacity.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Another thing I wanted to ask you before I do let you run, and every filmmaker these days gets asked this question, but I always get a different answer. So I'm very curious to know if the pandemic affected the shooting of this film. Was it shot during the pandemic, after, before? Like, I mean, how did that factor into everything?
Yeah, 100% affected it, very much so. You know, with the arts, anything, everything was affected, of course. But you know, you have to have a group of people gather to make a film. You have a crew. You know, people are flying in from everywhere. So yeah, we got hit pretty hard. You know, I brought Alan the script 3 years ago or so. So
Mm,
it's some time to make. We got to shoot. You know, there's certain protocols. You know, you have to have different stations, a cleaning station. You have to have COVID tests. And at the beginning, they were super, super, super expensive. We had to have a quick turnaround. So if we're shooting in Nevada, the only lab was in LA. So we had to have a runner going
yeah.
back and four
Wow.
or $500 a test at that time. So whoever it was making a lot of money, but we needed them. So it cost the production a ton of money. Then get this, long story short, we're in Nevada. I brought my crew from where we were shooting to a lot of locations because we were in our pod, right? Of course, when you're flying, we're wearing double masks. We're terrified. And the Screen Actors Guild, rightfully so, was super hyper concerned as they needed to be. So when we flew into Nevada, unfortunately I needed to meet with a locations guy, right, to go
Yeah.
around. So we kept our distance, etc. Me and the core guys, the DP, the assistant director, were there. We're going through, and turns out, you know, cut to 3 or 4 days later on our first day of principal photography there in that location. On the way to set, I get the 911 call, 6:30 in the morning. Locations guy's positive for COVID. So of course, SAG finds out, we get shut down. It's like a Wednesday. Guy never made it to set because we had protocol that you're getting tested at the hotel in a room individually before you get to set.
Yeah.
However, can't shoot. We get shut down. SAG was so inundated with this, they didn't even get back to us till Monday. So now we're
Oh,
shut down Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You can't shoot. It's money. We got the crew there. So those kind of things were constant obstacles throughout the production. And as I told you before, man, it's hard to make a movie anyway. And me, being, you know, I've been on sets a long time. And I'll tell you one other thing. I was on a show about firefighters. Dennis Leary was the lead. It was called Rescue Me, right?
yep.
And I also acted, produced, wrote the show. So I didn't realize that for 8 years being next to this guy, 100 episodes, is amazing how much I learned from him. So I hadn't been a producer, director. I just had a lot of passion and I felt like I had some experience, but it was a lot, man. I learned so much throughout this process. I can't even begin to tell you, dealing with obstacles, being a leader, failing, learning, landing on my feet. Like Alan supporting me through the whole thing. I mentioned him earlier, Alan
Yeah.
Kovac. I was there for me no matter what. And, you know, we got something at the end. So
You certainly did. What a testament to what you've done, considering all of that was in the way. Like, huge, the biggest obstacle you could imagine. So, like, you know, you've delivered a fantastic product that's just fun. And without giving anything away, like, I just want to tell you that the final act of this movie is worth it for the price of admission alone. Like, it is just balls out gnarly.
yeah, man, it's like the birth of metal, someone said. And I was like,
Yeah.
it's crazy, man. It's fun and wild. And yeah, thanks, man. You know,
Well, yeah, congratulations, man. Like, I hope there's more movies from Better Music Films. Like, it's, you know, it's a really exciting kind of thing, and I wish you all the best with it. And thanks so much for taking the time to chat about it. It's been fun.
thank you so much. Best to you, and thank you for your time. And I appreciate your thoughtful questions, man. Thank you.
Luke 18, verse 3. Here's a parable about a woman seeking vengeance for a wrongdoer who victimized her and then escaped justice. But Jesus tells us when a sinner goes unpunished, he is only free from man's law. When man's law fails, God's law prevails.
Mr. Bishop! Hold it!
Mr. Bishop, Detective Sawyer, I'm sorry about your loss, Pastor. Don't think this was a case of road rage. Sarah was found with her hands zip tied to the steering wheel. I'm acquainted with this sort of hurt. I know the futility.
How'd you get through it?
I got healed.
How?
I'm going to tell you about an opportunity I was once given, and I'm going to offer you that same opportunity. I've got the guy, John. How'd you like 1 minute? 1 minute alone. John, I want to introduce you to the man who murdered your daughter. Time for you to heal, John. My only rule is you can't kill him. Count the moments. He stole from your Sarah. No turning back, John.
You can't find your own brother? Look harder.
This isn't you. You're scaring me.
Daddy, you okay?
Who the hell are you guys? Where's my brother? Here. Come on! She fought harder than you do!